Always nice to see everybody here as we begin a new year. So if you would, please remember to silence your electronic devices, and please stand and join us in the invocation and the pledge. Lord, as we begin a new year, we pause to remember the families in our city who have recently lost loved ones. We ask you to send your comfort upon them and pray that they feel the embrace of our community in their time of sorrow. We also ask for peace throughout the world and pray for all those suffering from war or oppression. Bless our meeting tonight as we engage in the work of self-governance. Grant us wisdom and compassion to promote the common good of all, for all in our amazing city of Temple Terrace. Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. We have one proclamation this evening for Arbor Day, and I think that's why we have so many of our folks here. This is really good timing because we also have our friends here from USF to provide a presentation, so the green is just perfect for tonight. So go Bulls. Thank you for being here. And our arborist, Joe Ferris, is here to receive the proclamation. Oh, I'm sorry. I skipped right over. Hang on a second, Joe. I'm sorry. I skipped right over.
You can do that first.
No, that's okay. So we have a new tradition here for those of you visiting us, and that is that we open our council meetings with a historical or interesting fact about our city. And we've been doing this for, about a year now, I guess? Yeah, it was Councilmember Fernandez's idea, and it's really turned out to be pretty cool. We pass it around, everybody takes a turn at it, but as time is going on, we're all noticing that it's getting harder and harder to do because so many of the well-known stories we've already talked about. So this year it's kind of a challenge for everybody to come up with something new and interesting that we haven't already talked about. So this meeting, it's Vice Mayor Meredith Abel's turn. So, Vice Mayor?
My fun fact is from the criminal code from the city of Temple Terrace from 1925 and a few revisions from 1927. And we're going to see if any of us are crooks. The first one that I'm going to read is, any person who shall operate an automobile or other motor-driven vehicle at a speed in excess of 25 miles per hour on or along the streets of the city of Temple Terrace shall be punished with a fine not exceeding $50 or by imprisonment for a period not exceeding 20 days. Anybody guilty in here? Okay. Next one is, it shall be unlawful for any person to throw upon any of the sidewalks of the city of Temple Terrace any banana peelings, or to throw any of the streets or sidewalks of the said city any tacks, broken glass, or other sharp or pointed material or substance which might puncture or injure the tire of any bicycle or automobile, or injure the feet of horses, persons, or beasts of burden. Any person convicted of a violation of any provision of this section shall be punished by a fine of not more than $25 or by imprisonment for a period not exceeding 30 days, or by both such fine and imprisonment. The next ones are from 1957, so much later. The first one I'm going to read to you is bathing in public. It shall be unlawful for any person to bathe in any public waters within the corporate limits of the city without a bathing suit. No skinny dipping. Next one is children torturing or tormenting. It shall be unlawful for any person to torture, torment, or cruelly punish any child under the age of 16 years, or allow the same to be done within the corporate limits of the city. Of course, we should follow that, but what about the 17 and 18-year-olds? I'm a little concerned about them. And the final one, I'm going to try not to point any fingers on this one. It says vagrants, generally. It shall be unlawful for any person to be a vagrant within the corporate limits of the city. Rogues and vagabonds, idle or dissolute persons who go about begging, common gamblers, persons who use juggling or unlawful games or plays, common pipers or fiddlers, common drunkards, common night walkers, thieves, pilferers, traders in stolen property, lewd, wanton, and lascivious persons, keepers of gambling places, common railers and brawlers, persons who neglect their calling of employment, or are without reasonably continuous employment or regular income, and who have not sufficient property to sustain them, and misspend what they earn without providing for themselves or support of their families. Persons wandering or strolling around from place to place, without any lawful purpose or object. Habitual loafers. Idle and disorderly persons. Persons neglecting all lawful business and habitually spending their time by frequenting houses of ill fame. Gaming houses or tippling shops. Persons able to work but habitually living upon the earnings of their wives and minor children, and all able-bodied persons over the age of 18 years who are without means of support and remain in idleness shall be deemed vagrants. Any police officer or policeman of the city or other lawful officer may arrest any vagrant described in this section without a warrant, in case the delay in procuring one would probably enable such alleged vagrant to escape arrest. Any person so arrested by virtue of a warrant or without a warrant shall be given a speedy trial. And that's what I have for today.
Very good. Very good. So we're going to reenact some of those and send them all to the code board, Mr. Pagora. Very good. Thank you. Okay. Our arborist, Joe Ferris, and Garden Club President Gwen Mora are here to receive the proclamation for Arbor Day. They put you on the spot.
Thank you.
So whereas Arbor Day started in 1872 and is a day set aside to encourage the planting, preserving, and appreciation of trees. Trees provide countless benefits by improving air quality, providing shade, enhancing our park and public spaces, reducing stormwater runoff, combating climate change, and providing habitat for wildlife while beautifying our community. Florida continues to lose native trees, and this in turn has contributed to steep declines in native insect and bird populations and threatens our natural heritage. Florida Arbor Day has been observed on the third Friday in January since 1886. The Florida Federation of Garden Clubs is celebrating its 100th anniversary in 2024. There's a lot of 100 anniversaries going around these days. The Temple Terrace Garden Club was formed in 1946 when some of those laws were still in effect, and has been a member of the Florida Federation of Garden Clubs for 75 years. The Temple Terrace Garden Club has celebrated Florida Arbor Day by planting or giving away trees. The Temple Terrace Garden Club will celebrate both Florida Arbor Day and FFGC's birthday on January 19th of 2024 by planting a magnolia tree at 11 a.m. on the first fairway of the Temple Terrace Golf and Country Club. Therefore, I, Andrew Ross, Mayor of the City of Temple Terrace, do hereby proclaim January 19th, 2024 as Arbor Day in the City of Temple Terrace, Florida. So would you like to say a few words?
Well, speaking of historic facts, I don't know how many of you know that the Temple Terrace Garden Club is the oldest club in the city of Temple Terrace. So that's quite a historic fact for us. And we now have 100 members strong, and we are part of the Federation of the Florida Garden Clubs. And there are over 155 clubs throughout the state of Florida with over 10,000 members. So we're part of a bigger picture. And we really appreciate the city and their support of this Friday. I think you all received your invitations. Sorry everyone can't be there, but that's understood. But we thank the city for helping us get our southern magnolia tree, with Joe helping us with that. And the golf course, they are so generous. They are actually going to dig the hole for us and help us plant the tree. And it is not in the first fairway, James. It is actually in the rough of the first fairway. So just wanted to make sure.
The fairway would be safer for me. But anyway,
You and a few others that we
Yes.
know. So we do appreciate your support and recognizing this very special day, and again, the 100th year of the Florida Federation of Garden Clubs. So thank you.
Thank you, Gwen. Joe?
I'm good.
You're good? So I would like to share, and I hopefully all the garden club members have gotten the word on this, but just to put on the record, and if you didn't get the word, the reason that most of us will not be able to be there is because we have the ribbon cutting of the new VA hospital at that same time. And it's not that you're not as important, because you certainly are, but there'll be a lot of officials from Washington and state officials, and so they kind of expect us to be there. It would really be kind of a snub if we weren't there. So we do apologize, and our hearts will be with you rather than cutting ribbons. But so anyway, I wanted to make sure you knew that.
I think James is going to represent you for a few minutes. We're going to have him the very first, and then he could leave. So
Yeah, but I
thank
think
you.
we would all be there if it weren't for that. So, okay.
This is a big one. He's gonna get up to the-
Do you want us, can we all come up? Sure. Okay, good.
As long as we can squeeze them in the camera frame, sure.
Get close.
Okay, good job.
You gotta be in the center here. Okay, so we gotta do this in order. So you guys have to tell us which camera to look at when you're taking, so we don't look at the wrong one. So we're gonna look at Mary. Look at Mary first.
Go over here.
Going a little bit more, it's the gentle part. All right, 3, 2, 1. I'm gonna do one more for good luck. 3, 2, 1. Thank you.
Okay, now we'll look at Joelle.
1, 2, 3, smile. One more. 1, 2, 3.
Now,
One more. Three, two, one. I'm confident.
thanks for being here. Thank you. Joe, thank you. Good to see you. Thanks for coming.
We won't. Yeah.
Okay, next we have what I'm sure is going to be a very interesting presentation by Dr. Eric Eisenberg. Dr. Eisenberg is the Senior Vice President for Community Partnerships at USF, works directly for President Rhea Law. And I have to tell you that I've known Dr. Eisenberg since before he assumed that position under President Law, and I was thrilled when she assigned him to that role because he's a fantastic ambassador, always a great contact at USF, and just a real can-do kind of guy. And so, Eric, you're up. Thank you for being here.
Oh, it's lovely to see you and to meet all of you. And it would be maybe more fun if we were in a tippling house. I think I know what a tippling house is. But I'm delighted to be here with you tonight and to provide you with a summary of some of the work that we're doing at the University of South Florida. As you know, it's a pivotal time for the Tampa Bay region, for Temple Terrace, for USF. Great things are happening, and it feels as if the future is really, really very bright. When President Law took over officially a year ago, she and I had a conversation at her dining room table where I said to her that I wanted my legacy at the university. I've been at USF for over 35 years. I said I want my legacy to be that we really have figured out how to connect with our community in ways that are really productive. And her response was, "No, you can't have that. That's my legacy." But the point I want to make, it could be both of our legacies, is that Many universities struggle with what used to be called town and gown relationships. And if you look around the country, you will notice that there's some pretty bad examples and there's some good examples out there. And we really want to be a good example. And the fact that RIA Law is from the community, is deeply connected to the community, means that she and I make a pretty good team in terms of really honoring that commitment. One of the things that Rhea and I both say is that every great city has a great university in the world. And that relationship can really be a mutual relationship. We care deeply about partnerships with local governments, with business and nonprofits. But the truth is that even our closest neighbors, which would be you guys, can sometimes be a little bit stymied by how to best interact with the university. One of the things that I've discovered as a college professor my whole life is that all universities are somewhat similar in the sense that when you drive up to the front gate, the first question is, where do I park? How do I park? How do I get in? What's here? What's the wayfinding? All that kind of stuff. And so my job is to try to demystify some of that for people so that if you wake up one morning on behalf of the city of Temple Terrace or your business or your family, and you say, you know what, there's something I'd really like to access and know about at the university. If you contact me, I will be your concierge. I will be that person at that hotel desk who will say, okay, you don't need to find it, I will find it for you. So that's really what the job is. President Law insists on calling me her front door to the university, so much so that next Halloween I think I know what I'm going to dress up as. But my job is to take the strong partnerships that we already have with entities such as TICO and TGH and the Lightning, and to build those partnerships in ways that promote mutual success. One of the things that I've been discovering is that a lot of the large organizations in this area, in this immediate area, are beginning to have leaders who are also interested in partnerships. And that hasn't always been the case. We are beginning to develop a very strong relationship with our VA. I heard you say you've got a VA opening coming up. And I don't want to embarrass you, sir, but it is so wonderful to have such an engaged leader as Mayor Ross lead in front of Temple Terrace. And I've met with him and Mr. Baya a number of times, and we have been plotting and scheming ways of working together. You may know that we are now one of America's leading research universities, which means that if you have a question about anything, we probably have an expert. And so if this council is ever puzzled about something, what's happening in Yemen, what's the latest on melanoma treatments and cures, let me know, and I will send them here, and they will share that information with you. So specifically, what has my team been up to? And I just wanted to recognize I have two members of my team with me today. I have Ms. Cassandra Baker, who's my Director of Operations, and I have Dr. Monica Miranda, who's in charge of community engagement, nonprofits, and advocacy groups. So here's four things that we've been doing. So the first thing is we understand that our role is to be a main provider of talent for local businesses. So we work hard to make sure that our curriculum is current, and we have completely revamped our career services office to ensure that companies have easy access to student interns and to graduates. Very, very important. And so, again, if there are ways in which we can help with supporting small businesses and large businesses with talent, we are here to do that. Secondly, we play a critical role in the upskilling of current employees. The world is changing so quickly that very often people find themselves in jobs where they don't have the latest information. A great example of that is artificial intelligence. In every organization in the city and beyond, there is some boss or CEO saying to everybody in the organization, hey, you better learn about that AI stuff. I think it might be important for us, right? So how do you do that? How do you do that? Well, most people don't want to go back to school and get another computer science degree or something like that. So what we do is we create on-demand certificate and badging programs about hot topics, whether it's AI, cybersecurity, environmental sustainability, all these different kinds of things. If there's something that you want to know about, we can create a program and a badging program around those different things. We have an office that does lifelong learning. We don't believe that the university should be a 4-year experience. We think that it should be a lifetime experience. So we work with kids camps, youth experience, upskilling, and we had a wonderful event the other day with our Osher Lifelong Learning organization, where we have continuing education for people who are retired. And I love walking around and looking at the Osher offerings because it's literally from how to operate your iPad to Renaissance paintings. I mean, it's everything that you could possibly want to learn about. The third of 4 that we've worked hard to do is to solidify our partnership with MacDill to ensure that we can provide our military with the information that they need to be successful. We have something called the Global and National Security Institute. We have the Institute for Applied Engineering, which is in the University Mall, now called Rhythm. We have Cyber Florida, which is the state of Florida's cybersecurity operation. All of these are led by General Frank McKenzie, former commander of Central Command, who now works in my office and works to smooth all of our relationships with Central Command, Special Operations Command, and with the Air Force. And again, if you have interest in topics around the military, I'm happy to bring folks here to talk about any of those issues. General McKenzie had an editorial in the Wall Street Journal a couple of days ago about what's happening in the Middle East, but we're just across the street. So if there are if there are things you want to know, I'm happy to bring that right to your doorstep. And then fourth, and perhaps most relevant to you, we work with governments and nonprofits to improve quality of life. The most pressing issues facing USF right now are the same issues that your city faces: attainable housing, food insecurity, transportation, and mental health. And so towards this end, I've been working with all the key players in the uptown area to see what we can do to build some placemaking around this neighborhood to really sort of improve the neighborhood and make the neighborhood a more attractive destination for locals and visitors alike. Like Mayor Ross, like Mr. Baya, I've been very involved with FDOT and with the Planning Commission, working on the future of Fowler Avenue. It's clear that this area was designed as a sort of suburban expressway, and we really want to make it into a much more walkable, friendly, accessible place where you don't have to take your life in your hands to cross the street. So there are lots of opportunities to do things right, and lots of things are happening all at once. So you know that the county has issued a RFP for the redevelopment of the Mosey property. I'm on that committee. I expect some of you are as well. We plan to issue an RFP around the redevelopment of the golf course property to the north of our campus. And you may have heard that we're building a stadium. I don't know. $350 million stadium. As I tell my friends at UCF, it's going to be a nice stadium. That's kind of mean. But one of the things that we are absolutely committed to is to make sure that these are things that you can be proud of and that will influence your quality of life in a positive, not a negative way. And so internally, I have lots of conversations with my colleagues who say, hey, we want to do this on the edge of the campus. And my first thought is, I need to talk to Mayor Ross, I need to talk to Carlos, I need to talk to you guys about how is this going to work for Temple Terrace, because we really, really want to be close partners on this. And as I said, we want to reimagine Fowler as a different type of corridor, one that focuses on pedestrians, transit, and business development. So those are some of the things we're doing. I could go on and on and on, and I don't know what the format is, but I'm happy to take questions if you have them.
Council members, any questions? Dr. Eisenberg? Just for the public's edification, we hear a lot, particularly during campaign season, and everybody up here who campaigned for office probably said this at one point or another, is we need to strengthen our relationships with USF and take advantage of the resources that are right here. And which we do, and we always need to continue to do that and double down on that. But I do want the public to know that we have numerous collaborative efforts going on with USF right now. You mentioned Cyber Florida. Our cybersecurity protocol here at the City of Temple Terrace, we decided to go with Cyber Florida, which is embedded at USF, under the direction of General McKenzie, who, by the way, my daughter works for as a student employee. So she keeps telling me she can't tell me what she does at work. We also have a partnership going, I don't even know if you know this, we have a partnership going with the Muma College of Business. They are working with us. We are in the middle of a strategic planning process that we've been working on for several months for free. We're not paying anything for that. And we couldn't afford that. And the list goes on and on and on. Dr. Eisenberg mentioned Fowler Avenue and the stadium and pedestrian projects. So we've got a lot of collaboration going with USF. I think we probably always did, but it's really upped the game. Since President Law's come in and since you've been in this position, we've really developed a lot of relationships. And so it's really turned out to be a benefit to us. I hope a benefit to the university as well. So,
Absolutely.
any questions or comments?
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for being here.
Pleasure.
Good to see you. Next up is an appointment to the Municipal Code Enforcement Board. There is one regular member vacancy on the MCEB. City received one application from Mr. Pogorlich. Mr. Pogorlich is known by most of us. He is currently serving as the chair of the Code Board and has served on the board for the past 3 years, although he previously served on the Code Board prior to being elected and doing 2 terms on City Council also, so he's got the experience. He's a licensed general contractor in the state of Florida. Mr. Pogorlich has previously served, as I mentioned, as a council member and was recently appointed to the Riverwatch Task Force. I do see Mr. Pogorlich is here, and I think he wishes to say a few words. Good evening, sir.
And I also bleed green and gold. My wife, my sister-in-law, my father-in-law taught there. My daughter is currently going there. She's graduating a semester early, but it doesn't mean anything to me because she's going back to get her master's. So anyway, I just want to say that it has been very much an honor and pleasure to serve on the Code Board, and it will continue to be an honor and pleasure should you all decide to reappoint me. And I just wanted to also take this opportunity to thank Mr. Chambers, who literally has been there for us. I don't think he's ever missed a meeting. He's there every meeting. We don't call on him often, but when we do, he's always got the right answers for us, and we certainly appreciate that. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Pogorlich. Is there a motion?
So moved. Second.
Oh, think we need a little specificity about the
To
term.
approve David Pogorlich as the opening position in the Municipal Code Enforcement Board.
That's sufficient?
From
Okay.
February 2nd, 2024 to February 2nd, 2027.
Was that your intent?
That's the intent.
Okay, do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, is there discussion of the motion? If not, all those in favor signify with aye.
Aye.
Opposed? No nays? Mr. Pogorlich, thank you so much for your service. I know that is oftentimes a thankless job, and you do a tremendous job of herding the cats there, so thank you for re-upping with
I
us.
would like a comment.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, and since you thanked me, I'll thank you also. As chairman, you've done an outstanding job at every meeting. Thank you. Keeps them going.
Okay, has everybody had an opportunity to review the minutes from the January 2nd council meeting? And if so, is there a motion to approve the minutes?
Move to approve the minutes.
Second.
Any corrections to the minutes? Not, all those in favor signify with aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed, no nays. The minutes are adopted. I think that was the fastest council meeting in history there. I watched that from home. That was a good job. Next, persons wishing to be heard on items not listed on the agenda or items on the consent agenda. There are forms in the back of the room available. If I currently have no requests to speak, are there members of the public who wish to address the council? Okay, very good. Next is a resolution approving a renewal agreement with the fire department's medical director, and our fire chief Ian Kemp is here to explain. Good evening, Chief.
Good evening, Mayor, Council, City Manager, Ian Kemp, your Fire Chief. Before you is a resolution approving a renewal agreement with the Fire Department's Medical Director. Section 401.265 of the Florida statute requires licensed advanced life support ALS providers to contract with a medical director. Dr. Brooke Shepard took over this role as our medical director for the Fire Department back in 2012 and has since provided excellent training, leadership, and direction to the Fire Department required to maintain the high-quality medical service we currently provide to the citizens of Temple Terrace. Dr. Shepard consistently meets or exceeds what is expected of her by our agency. The proposed contract becomes effective on February 3rd, 2024, and expires on September 30th, 2025. The medical director shall be reimbursed through an annual retainer, shall continue to be reimbursed through an annual retainer fee of $34,730 for the provisions of all the services set forth within the agreement. The retainer shall be increased by 7% to $37,161 on October 1st, 2024, with the funds for this contract budgeted annually and included in the Fire Department's general fund budget for this fiscal year. It is recommended that the City Council approve the renewed agreement between Dr. Brooke Shepard and our current Fire Department Medical Director and the City of Temple Terrace for the provisions of medical direction services in accordance with Florida Statute 401.265. Dr. Shepard unfortunately could not be here tonight. She's working in the emergency room.
Thank you, Chief. Are there members of the public who wish to comment on this? Not council member questions. Any questions for the Fire Chief? Seeing none, is there a motion to approve the renewal agreement with the Medical Director?
Move to approve the renewal agreement with the Fire Department's Medical Director.
Second.
Any discussion of the motion?
I would just like to make one comment. Sure. That, above and beyond that, it was very I appreciated her coming to council. I think she did a couple of times to update us on COVID issues.
Yes, sir.
Back during the pandemic. So I know I appreciated it, and it was good to have our medical personnel address us and tell us what was really going on. So thank you.
Thank you. She's very passionate about the job she does, not only in the emergency room, but she absolutely loves working with the fire department and representing the fire department, and obviously is a resident here in the City of Temple Terrace.
Yeah, I'd like to comment also on that real briefly. She's, you see her at so many of the community events we have, the Winter Wonderlands and the art. I mean, she's a very active resident of Temple Terrace, and like most of us, during those encounters when I see her out, there's a lot of sidebar conversations and a lot of, since she's always willing to provide information and help. So yeah, I'm glad she's re-upping. She's really good. So.
Thank you, sir.
Okay. If there's no other comments, all those in favor signify with aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? No nays. Resolution is adopted. Thank you, Chief. Next is a resolution approving the second adjustments to fiscal year 2024. Finance Director Jim Ingram will explain.
Good evening, Honorable Mayor and City Council. At the conclusion of fiscal year 2023, there were several purchase orders for items and projects that were not completed by September 30th, 2023. Because the expenditures did not take place in fiscal year 2023, there is fund balance to continue these necessary commitments into fiscal year 2024. The items and projects on these purchase orders were approved and appropriated in fiscal year 2023. Exhibit 1 details the purchase order numbers, the vendors, GL accounts, item or project description, amount balance for budget adjustment, and the appropriated fund balance accounts to adjust in order to provide funds and balance the budget. The aggregate totals for each affected fund are as follows. General Fund, $683,803. Street Improvement Fund, $699,054. Community Investment Fund, $719,484. There was, I noticed on the discussion part, left off the TIF fund, the tax increment fund, which does have $2,291 left on the Kimley Horn pedestrian study that is still needed to carry over. Water and Sewer Utility Fund, $632,749. Water and Sewer Renewal and Replacement Fund, $3,092,255. And the Water Improvement Fund, $24,368. Staff recommends that council adopt a resolution approving the adjustments to the fiscal year 2024 budget. And I stand for any questioning or questions you may have.
Thank you, Mr. Ingram. Are there members of the public who wish to comment? Not council member questions for Mr. Ingram. Seeing no questions, is there a motion?
Move to approve the budget adjustments as presented.
Second.
Motion and a second. Discussion of the motion? If not, all those in favor signify with aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? No nays? Very good. Resolution's adopted. Thank you, Mr. Ingram. Last resolution is a resolution authorizing the city manager to negotiate a purchase and sale agreement for the acquisition of a plus or minus 5 acre parcel of property located at 7911 Harney Road. And I'll let the city manager explain.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of council. Good evening. At the last council meeting, we discussed an opportunity that had come to our attention regarding a property located actually on Harney Road that would fit the criteria that the council has as a priority to find a location for a future police station. That evening, we talked about the size of this particular location. It was a 5 acre piece of land. And in fact, it looked as if not only would it accommodate a future police station, it could also house a future Fire Station 3, which is something in our long-term plans for the community if we want to make sure that we keep our response times at acceptable standards, particularly for the southeast portion of our city. We asked for direction as a staff to go ahead and pursue that opportunity because we had been talking publicly in a different direction with property across the street here from City Hall. Council was amenable to that. The property at the time of the last council meeting was listed on the market for $1,975,000. The price, in fact, dropped to $1,800,000 subsequent couple of days after our council meeting. We had a good conversation with the representative of the seller team that included the police chief, the fire chief, the director of utilities, the business relations manager, and myself. Toured the property back on, I believe it was the 5th. The property actually seemed rather ideal for our needs in terms of the way its location. When you're on site, you can really get a really good grasp of how it would look with some sort of public safety facility on site. Because of that, we offered a letter of intent to the seller. We arrived at certain terms that are included in the backup this evening. And those terms, and I can just go through them very, very briefly here. Right now, this property, because of the way it was subdivided off from the master lot, it was part of a larger agricultural piece of property. There is a right of first refusal on the property by a budding family member. So that one of our conditions is that the right of first refusal has to be clarified and waived, obviously. The conditions that we laid out include also a satisfactory Phase 1 environmental assessment for the council and the public watching. A Phase 1 assessment is basically looking at the history of the property and the context of this community and trying to figure out, is there anything that would raise a red flag that could be, contamination, things like that you'd want to take a closer look at. We'd require a survey, a property survey, which we would conduct to make sure that the property has enough developable land. So there's wetlands would be delineated, encumbrances, things like that. We'd also take the time to get some preliminary governmental reviews, particularly with the county. It's a county road, Harney Road. We want to make sure that there's capacity on that road to accommodate this use. We think there would be, obviously, because there's a lot of other development going on there, but we'd want to confirm that. We'd want to make sure that the title is insurable for the property. And the property itself today, like a lot of properties when people accumulate stuff over the years, there's an RV, a boat, and a storage container on site. We'd want that removed, obviously, before the sale. We have agreed to tentatively, obviously with council's approval, a 90-day due diligence period. There is a $30,000 provision for a $30,000 deposit. The approval this evening includes a provision for $10,000 of that deposit to be put into escrow within 5 days of this approval this evening, if council so wished, which would go, and that $10,000, if you approve this evening, what you would be approving is allowing us to start entering into a purchase and sale agreement, not to actually buy the property. We need 30 days notice to do that, so this would just be to enter into a purchase and sale. To draft it, working with the city attorney, myself, and the other party. And if we get to a point where we have a mutually acceptable purchase and sale at the administrative level, then we would bring it to you for a hearing on February 20th. If at that hearing, the council were to say no, we don't want, despite the fact that staff has agreed to this, we don't want to do that. We don't want to acquire this property at that point, based on these criteria I've laid out this evening. Then the $10,000 would not be refundable. They would go with the seller, basically, you're basically paying for an option for a month in essence. If the council were to approve the sale back on February 20th, then those dollars would simply go into the rest of the escrow with the other $20,000. That would be part of the remaining balance. That would be refundable if they were unable to meet any of the contingencies that I've just laid out to you for that due diligence period. So having said all that, the piece you're probably most interested in is the price. So as I mentioned, the property was at nearly $2 million, went to 1.8. We arrived at a price of $1,600,000 for the property. And that's what I have before you. I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Bree. Are there members of the public who wish to comment? All right, council member questions? I have one. I don't know if you're going to know the answer to this. I don't mean to, this is not meant as a gotcha. I didn't have time to call you today. Do you know what the difference is between a level 1 or phase 1 environmental and a phase 2? What the difference is?
Sure. My understanding of it, and I can rely on Utilities Director Chinch to clarify. If I misspeak, just let me know. Phase 1 is more contextual, looking at the history of a property, sort of. For example, if you were up north and you had a lot of mills around, so if there were mills on the property, some sort of mill, you'd look at that history, say, what was the history of the operations in that mill? Is there a likelihood that there's something about that operation that could have contaminated this property? So it's doing a lot of that due diligence, looking at title issues and things like that, seeing who had the chain of command over this, or chain of ownership, I should say. It's not actually necessarily doing testing on the soil. That would be more of a, so if you get a phase 1 and you think, well, there's things here we need to look at, like if there is, again, like an active leather tannery, because that's one I dealt with up in north. So we had a leather tannery. There were a lot of issues. So it was very evident from the phase 1, which led us to do a phase 2, which is more intensive, doing soil samples, things like that, where you want to figure out, okay, is there something else here that we need to be aware of? Mr. Tench, is that accurate? Okay.
So I don't know the history of this property. I don't know if anybody does. I don't know if this was at one time part of a dairy operation there, and I don't know if that is something that would be of concern, even if, I don't know if this was just where the house was, or if there were actually like a cattle dairy farm operation there. I don't know.
So I've spoken with some staff who've been here, well, much longer tenure than I have. I mean, we're talking people who've been here for decades, and their recollection of it, and just this afternoon right before the meeting, they've been here for about 40 years, and they recall it being pasture land largely for the dairy farm. They don't recall necessarily, it's not to say that it couldn't have been, but they don't recall it being agricultural crops growing on this site, but mostly pasture for the cattle, who have since now been relocated to, I think, the Citrus County. So that would all come out. They would do interviews of the owner. They would do interviews in the general public, try to get a feel for, like, what's this land been used for in the past. If it's truly been used as pasture land, that's good. versus, not to say that it's a bad thing with agriculture, but with agriculture, it just leads to other questions. I will say that if we found something in the phase one that gave us pause, we have a right to back out of the deal, or alternatively, we may want to negotiate an option to get some more time and do a phase two, if that's something that we wanted to pursue.
Okay. Other questions?
I do.
Oh, Councilmember Fernandez.
So we've talked about this site potentially being available for a police and a future fire station. How can you tell in this window of analysis if the site is actually suitable for building for both of those applications?
So when we looked at the layout for the police station, and then I looked also at the layout of one of our fire stations, in fact, in terms of a land area, it would accommodate both independently, based upon what we have today and what we project. But obviously, there'd be some economy of scale on the site. You might share parking, you might share some non-apparatus type facilities. So there's different things there that you'd probably save space on. Also, to answer your question, when we had the police and fire chief on the site, that was one of the things we wanted them to, pay particular close attention to. Does this work for both? And they can speak for themselves, but my impression was both were pretty confident that it could work for both uses. And that's actually one of the things I wanted to just make sure I mentioned for the public, is the council, when you were looking at this for this year, your council priority was to find a location for a police station. You actually budgeted or allocated about $1.5 million towards that. I believe this property for $1.6 million gives us the potential again to do two things. So for the second property, we probably would have to buy sometime at some point down the road, and land becoming scarcer would probably get more expensive. In this case, you're getting both for almost the same value in our estimation.
And then we talked about this a little bit, but in terms of the size of the equipment for the fire department specifically, this area, the street can accommodate it, and the ingress and egress can accommodate the size of the fire trucks.
So that's actually one of the things we're going to be looking at when I mentioned talking to the county, because we just want to make sure that it can accommodate all that. This section of roadway, leading just immediately to the west and just beyond it to the east, has been improved recently and widened. When they did, there was across the street from this property, there is a flex industrial type of development there, and you could tell they actually widened the road and put in a turn lane. So that helps us. And then we want to look, talking with the county, figuring out, okay, is there anything else we need to be aware of? And obviously, we'd have to take that in consideration before we move forward with whatever proposal we're going to end up doing here.
And that would include, because the fire stations all have the signal in front to allow the trucks to come out.
Mm-hmm.
That will include the county either approving that signal can we operate if they don't approve that signal?
So the county will have to approve the driveway access point for this development. And in that discussion, the way my experience is that usually they look at the totality of what you're proposing. Okay. And so whether the signal's there or not, I think it's going to be part of the total equation.
Okay.
Other questions? Okay. If there are no other questions, is there a motion?
I move to approve the resolution authorizing the city manager to negotiate a purchase and sale agreement for the acquisition of a ± 5-acre property at 7911 Harney Road.
Second.
Motion and second. Discussion of the motion. All those in favor signify with aye.
Aye.
Opposed? No nays. Resolution is adopted.
Thank you.
I have one comment.
Yes.
A comment, I think it's a very perfect location because the address is 7911 Harney, just so you know.
It's a sign.
It's a sign.
Okay. Is there council business, carryover council business? Board reports. Yes, Councilmember Fernandez.
Well, I have one item relating to Arbor Day, and that is the city of Temple Terrace is a tree city, and we're obviously very rightfully proud of our tree canopy. Can we explain to residents how they can get trees to plant from the city?
Right now? Or just in general?
In general, like it, because we have the ability to, for residents to come pick up a tree and plant it in their yard.
Sure. So I think coincidentally with Arbor Day, one thing we can do, and Mr. Duarte's here, is really push out some messaging about that to align with that practice. Mr. Sherman, do you want to come up and just talk in general right now for the folks watching in the council?
Good evening, ma'am. Members of the council. So I believe generally there's like 4 times or period of time each year that our arborist goes out and does tree giveaways. At that time, he gives them to plant in the yard, tells them basically how to maintain them, what a watering schedule is, and he's recently come up with something now to start handing out to our residents and try and get them to sign it that says, yeah, we understand at least what it takes to maintain those trees. We generally budget $20,000 plus per year to do that, and our arborist is really, he's always excited, works hard with our residents, and he's a great asset to our department.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Sherman. Any other new business, board reports?
I have board reports.
Okay,
Are we there?
we're there.
Okay, the Centennial Celebration Committee, the CCC, one of their members, Sharon Gaskin, resigned from the board, which brought him down a member. And the group discussed whether they wanted to add to their group. And the reason being, when it was approved by council, there were 5 members. Each council member picked a person. And then we, the council, added Sherry Donahue to that committee, which made it 6. So there was some discussion that the council member that appointed Sharon Gaskin to it could reappoint somebody for that position. That person's Sherry Donahue, so she's no longer on council. So the group just had no opinion one way or the other. Do they want 6 or 5? Except that they felt very comfortable leaving it at 5 and not reappointing anybody. So my question to everyone here, is that satisfactory, or do we want to appoint one more?
It's fine with me, but it's going to take a motion because we changed it to 6. So we would have to have a motion to.
Well, if we don't change it and leave it at 6, then we need to have something in place to reappoint somebody. We could advertise.
Right, but if we're going to reduce it back to 5, somebody would need to make a motion to that effect.
Well, I'm going to stay out of it because the committee really didn't care. I'm not going to make a motion one way or the other. I want the thoughts of the council on that.
Okay.
I'm good. Well, I will my comment. I'm good with 5, and they're fine. But yes.
How are they functioning as a unit of 5?
Well, they only did it this last meeting, and they were
Well, I
fine.
mean, they were
Yes.
5 to begin with, and then it went up to 6, and now they're back to 5.
Yes.
If they can function as a unit, then I'm okay with leaving it at 5.
Yeah, if you recall, I'm the one that asked the council to up it to 6 when Councilmember Donahue termed out, because she had been actively engaged in that, and obviously those of us who know her know that she's passionate about that. And so it was me who asked to up it, but it was really purely, wasn't based on the idea that we needed 6. It was based on the idea that we wanted Sherry to continue to participate. So I'm comfortable going back to 5 unless you see a reason to keep it at 6. We accomplished what we were trying to accomplish.
I'm okay
So.
with 5.
Councilmember Fernandez, you okay with 5?
I'm okay with 5.
Okay, well, I think we need a motion because we made a motion to go up to 6. I think
Okay,
we need a
and
motion.
I will make that motion.
Okay.
Since there's a consensus that we reduce the number of committee members of the Centennial Committee from 6 to 5.
Second.
Okay, discussion? All those in favor signify with aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed, no nays, problem solved. Other new business or board reports? Okay, I have a couple of things here, but let's go through the mayor appointments first. This didn't change, there's only one thing that changed on this, and I want to discuss that, because 2 of you offered to take on the Historical Preservation Board. And I appreciate that. And I on here, I assigned it to myself. But I want to tell you why. I wish I could have just called you and had this conversation, but obviously we can't do that. So the two that offered, I thank you for your offer, and you can have it if you want it. But my thinking was, Councilmember Chambers, was this is the last year before the centennial. Things are going to get busy with the Centennial Committee. In addition to that, you volunteered to take on the Public Art Initiative, which I hope that is going to be taken up sometime too. So I was concerned that you're going to have a busy year already. And with the vice mayor, I don't know what your year's going to look like right now.
Neither.
I know you don't. And so I was a little concerned. Now, this is only a quarterly meeting, so it's not, it's at 5 p.m. and it's only quarterly. It's not a huge lift. But it is a new board, which takes a little more work than a board that's already up and running. So I don't necessarily need to, and I didn't even think of the two of you because you're already got a heart up to the eyeballs. So if you want this, please let me know. I'm happy to give it to you. I was concerned about your workload, and that's why so I don't want you to look at this and say, oh, the mayor's taking everything. You can have it.
Do we need a motion that it's not me?
So if you want it, I just wanted to explain that because I appreciate the fact that you told Cheryl that you would be willing to do it. If you want it, let me know. We'll make that change right now. Okay. So I'm going to read through this really quick because I think it's important for the public to understand how much each of you do. So I'm going to read through the assignments very quick. For me, the assignments are the Hillsborough County Transportation Planning Organization, Tampa Hillsborough County Economic Development Corporation, the Florida League of Cities, the Florida League of Mayors, the Suncoast League of Cities, the Tourism Development Council, the Police Pension Board, the Fire Pension Board, the Visit Tampa Bay Advisory Council, and the new Historic Preservation Board. For Vice Mayor Abel, it's the Affordable Housing Advisory Board, the Bicycle Pedestrian Advisory Committee, Career Source of Tampa Bay Board of Directors, the School Support Committee, and the Soaring City Innovation Partnership. For Councilmember Chambers, it's the Board of Adjustment, the Library Board, Municipal Code Enforcement Board, the Centennial Celebration Committee, the Advisory Board of the Arts Council Division of Hillsborough County, the alternate to the Affordable Housing Advisory Board. Councilmember Fernandez is the Cultural Assets Commission, Hillsborough County, the Hillsborough River Interlocal Planning Board, Tampa Bay Regional Planning Council, the Riverwatch Task Force, and an alternate to the Suncoast League of Cities. Councilmember Schisler is my alternate at the Hillsborough County Transportation Planning Organization. He is on the Hillsborough County Regional Transit, or HART Board, which consumes a tremendous amount of time. Temple Terrace Audit Committee, Temple Terrace Golf and Country Club Strategic Action Committee, the Police Pension Board, and the Fire Pension Board. Is that acceptable to everybody? If so, is there a motion to approve these appointments?
Move to approve the appointments as listed.
Second.
Is there discussion? If not, all those in favor signify with aye.
Aye.
Opposed? We all have lots of work to do. The next item under new business is, I mentioned earlier in the meeting, the strategic planning process that we're engaged in with USF. We need to schedule a meeting for the council to discuss the results of this and to formulate, kind of be similar to our annual goal-setting meeting, although kind of on steroids. Dr. Will estimates that we need about 2 hours. So I've worked with Jeannie Barlow, who's tremendous at this. And we have come up with February the 7th from 5 p.m. to 7 p.m. at Lightfoot. And so if that is agreeable to everybody, we do need a motion for that because it's a special council meeting.
Move to approve the meeting for the 7th from 5 to 7 p.m.
Second.
Any discussion? Okay, and for members of the public, obviously that is a public meeting, as all of our meetings are, so. Okay, all those in favor signify with aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed, no nays. We'll schedule for February 7th. If you pass that along to Mrs. Barlow. Next is Tallahassee. First of all, I don't know if any of you want to go. Hillsborough Day is next week, the 24th. I think it's Wednesday. If any of you want to go for Hillsborough Day, you're welcome to go. I think the city manager and I are going up for the day, and you are very welcome to join us if you want. It's actually, fun is not the right word for that. It's not fun, but it's it's interesting. It's better than a root canal. It's not terrible. So it is a long day, but if you would like to go with us, you are welcome to do that. But the other thing I need from you, and I apologize because I'm a little delinquent in this. COVID I missed a step or two here. I need the council to express their wishes to me. If I need approval to oppose some of these things that I think we should be opposed to because they're further erosion of home rule. But I don't want to put you on the spot. But this is the last time that we're going to have to talk about this before I'm in Tallahassee next week. Now, I may not get a chance to talk to anybody next week. It's always hit or miss. You never know if they're in session. You don't really have much of a chance. Sometimes you talk to 10 representatives, and sometimes you don't talk to anybody. It just depends on what's going on that day. But there's a couple things that personally I'd like to oppose on behalf of the city, but I can't do that without your approval. There's House Bill 609 talks about repealing the local government's ability to levy a local business tax. Oh my gosh. I don't even know what that would do to us. I know that it would obviously increase residential property taxes. Another one is House Bill 777. This one, I know what's behind it. I've studied it. I know why, but this is the nuclear option to fix a really surgical problem, in my opinion. This bill removes statutory authorization for municipalities to impose a surcharge for serving customers outside their municipal boundaries. Temple Terrace does provide water outside of our city limits, particularly to the east. In Thonotosassa, there are places, our water service area is much larger than the corporate limits of our city. We currently charge 10%, I think, is what we charge 10% more for the water accounts outside of the city limits. The thinking is they don't pay taxes to Temple Terrace, so we charge them a little more for the water. And it was our residents that initially built the water treatment plant and the infrastructure to supply the water to begin with. So this would obviously, at a time when we're already compelled to raise water rates, this would raise them even higher because we're going to have to collect the same amount of money and we're going to lose that 10% surcharge on everybody outside the city limits. The next one, Senate Bill 472 and House Bill 569, raises the sovereign immunity limits, which will obviously have an impact on our insurance rates. There's several related bills concerning residential building permits. I think we should oppose all of them. They impose expedited time frames on approving building permits under different circumstances. We don't take an excessive amount of time now. If there's a delay in obtaining a building permit, it's because there's a legitimate question about land use or something. There's a reason why there's a delay. And so one of these bills even says that we can only ask for additional information from the applicant a certain number of times. Well, we need to ask for the information we need to know whether we should approve the permit. In my opinion, it's just my opinion, I mean, I don't think we need Tallahassee telling us how to do building permits in the city of Temple Terrace. I think we have a pretty good handle on that. Those are the big ones. I try to be judicious with this when I come to the council. I try not to get into the stuff that's, you know, Democrat or Republican, or there's a lot of issues because we feel differently about some of that stuff, and I don't think that's, the city ought to get mired into those kinds of debates. I mean, we're all have our own personal opinions, but when we speak as the city, I think we should stick with the stuff that has to do with home rule and those kinds of things. So, yes, Vice Mayor.
I do have a question. The title of this document, where some of these bills you were just talking about, it says it's the League of Cities Legislative Bill Summaries, and I was wondering if the opposition that you expressed aligns with the League of Cities recommendation.
It does.
For opposing.
It does. Everything that I mentioned on the record here tonight aligns with the Florida League of Cities recommendation.
Thank you.
I didn't freelance on any of it. This is all, and there's other stuff I didn't mention just because I'm not trying to ask you to give me the Magna Carta here to go off and conquer the world. I'm just trying to get the ones that are going to have a big impact on us. And I don't know, our opposition, our opposition alone probably doesn't mean a whole lot, but our opposition with 411 other cities starts to add up. So, there you have it.
I wholeheartedly, if I may,
Yeah.
I wholeheartedly agree with your choices, specifically sovereign immunity. That could be a financial dagger to a lot of municipalities and organizations throughout the state, as well as the business taxes and the utility rates. So I would support your opposition to these when you're talking to the representatives and senators up in Tallahassee.
Is anybody uncomfortable with any of the ones that I want to oppose? No. Because I don't want to do anything that everybody's not comfortable with. Okay, if we need a motion for that, or does this head nod work?
I think it would be better if you had a motion to authorize you to represent the city with regard to,
Your microphone.
bills. Authorizing you to represent the city and present our views with regard to these proposed bills when you go to Tallahassee.
Okay. Well, if somebody is inclined to make that motion, the ones that I referenced are House Bill 609, House Bill 777, Senate Bill 472, and House Bill 569, which are both matching companion bills.
And if you're wanting to follow all of the opposition items, we can just attach this to the minutes of the motion so that you're not necessarily leaving something in the list out, because there's quite a few here.
Okay, and some of them are related to the same, we could do that. If you're comfortable, if you want me to, because there's some supports in here too. Yeah. If you want me to echo the Florida League of Cities in Tallahassee on behalf of the city, I think we could just make that motion, and I'll use this document. And
Okay, well, I'll make that motion because I support that you have authorization to lobby at the state level of the recommendations of the Florida League of Cities as presented tonight.
Second.
Discussion? Everybody comfortable with that? Okay.
Thank you for doing that.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, very good. I shall do so. And not one thing extra, I promise. All right, any other new business? Board reports? Very good, thank you. City manager?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of council. In your backup this evening, you'll see a quarterly report on the persons to be heard portions of the agenda. Just as a reminder to the council and the public that when we have people to be, that speak at the podium here, as the mayor does mention, we do take their concerns seriously, we do follow up, and the report just summarizes the actions that were taken. If you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them.
I do not. Council members, any questions?
No.
Very good. Thank you for this report, Mr. B. It's good to have this follow-up and close the loop on these things so things don't fall through the cracks and the public doesn't get it. It's just good. It's a good best practice, so thank you. Anything else?
No, sir, that's all I have.
Okay. City attorney.
I wanted to give a report on sort of what's been going on with the property at the corner of Bullard and 56th. This was the Paragon property. 5 violations were brought in front of the Code Enforcement Board over the summer. One for nuisance having to do with the maintenance of the fountain, landscape maintenance, sanitation, being garbage on the property and in the parking lot, although I have been told that that has been picked up. Again, it's a continuing thing. Whether it's still picked up tomorrow, I don't know. But also sanitation in the public areas, and the last one was, we call it unlawful practices, that had to do with the trash compactor not working. Apparently, the owner then removed the compactor entirely from the property. The Code Enforcement Board had found these had sustained these violations, found the property owner guilty. There are 2 liens currently running. One is at $100 a day, and last assessment was that it was $12,600. The second lien was a $250 a day running fine. The lien is currently at $54,250. On January the 10th, another case was brought in front of the Code Enforcement Board. This had to do with a fire alarm violation, was not the fire, I think the sprinklers and the alarm were not in working order. The property owner was given a deadline of sometime next week to repair it, and otherwise that's a $250 a day fine. Seeing that the imposition of running fines was not solving the problem, the legal department and the code enforcement department brought the owner to court on the 5 that had gone in front of the Code Enforcement Board. And let's see, I believe that this, let's see. Let's, if the fire, well, let me go back to the fire alarm violation. If the fire alarm violation is not corrected, that one is going to go to county court. The others, as I said, were cited again and were brought in front of the county court. A plea was entered of not guilty. This was fairly recent, and the court has set a trial date for early February. After the plea in county court, the director of code enforcement division here, Mr. Baroni, and the deputy city attorney, Mr. Mueller, met with the property owner on site so that they could discuss the violations on the property and make it clear to the owner what needed to be done. Hopefully for everyone, this will be taken care of prior to the trial date in February.
When did they meet with him? Recently?
Yes, I don't know what.
The day of the hearing?
Come on up, Tom.
Mr. Mayor, council members, Tom Baroni. The day of the hearing, Ernie and I requested Jared Moon join us in a visit over to the property. We walked the whole property. We showed Mr. Moon what we were looking for to have fixed. He took a lot of photos. He wrote down a lot of things, but I haven't seen anything as far as the trash in the parking lot. That's been We've been monitoring that closely, but everything else is still the same.
When did you do that walk? I mean,
Um,
recently?
About a month and a half ago, when we went down to the county court. So we're going back to the court February 4th or February 8th.
That's the trial date?
That's the trial date.
I believe it's the 8th.
I believe so too.
Okay.
So at our last code board hearing, the code board members were concerned about the fire alarm not working properly. So we had a little bit of a discussion that evening, and the city will take appropriate actions by some direction by the city manager and the fire chief.
What are the options for that? What is even?
Well, I thought of the county court, to take the Jared Moon to the county court, but maybe the chief, not to put you on the spot, but I don't know what action the fire department can take, or maybe the city manager could.
So they're required by law to have an active fire alarm system, I'm assuming?
That is my understanding, and Chief, correct me if I'm wrong here on that.
They're required by city ordinance. That's correct.
City ordinance?
Yes, sir, city ordinance.
So, I think where you might be going with your question is, what other options do we have potentially? When Mr. Baroni and I spoke, one of my suggestions was, like, I first of all, I want to make clear, nobody on city staff wants to impact the businesses negatively that are operating there. These people are trying to do the best they can. They're in I wouldn't say it's an untenable situation, but it's not a great situation to caught in the middle. Not having a working fire alarm, to me, is pretty significant from a life safety perspective. I don't know if the chief would agree, but it's something obviously it's very important to us. We wouldn't CO a building if they didn't have a working fire alarm. So we're going to look at, like I've said before to the council, I mean, we didn't go to county court before, now we're going to county court. So we're going to look at other tools, including, if we have to, potentially reaching out to the tenants themselves and saying, do you realize that this is a situation that your building is in right now, with fire alarm that has issues, other issues in the property? Can you apply some pressure also on the owner, because they have a financial relationship with the property owner. So those are the conversations we're having. We're looking at every single possible tool that we have that's allowed by law. I will tell you, the owner recently picked up the phone and actually answered one of our calls and paid his water bill, which was different. So that was a step in the right direction. He obviously showed up to court, which is also a positive. He could not have shown up, but that would have been bad for him. Issued of warrants probably for his arrest, and so everybody's working, trying to get this issue resolved as best we can. I know the code board's also been very involved with it as well. So.
And I don't know for sure, probably the inspector from the fire department who's been dealing with this would probably have more information, but it was told to me, this is hearsay, that it's possibility that because TECO had shut off the electricity, not to the individual businesses, but apparently there's a broad connection to the electricity there, that's what stopped the fire alarm from functioning, as well as the sprinkler system there, the irrigation system there. So it could be simply a payment of the electric bill that might make these things function again.
So in county court, it's been a while since I've been there. I'm sure things have changed. Who prosecutes the case? Does the state attorney's office prosecute the case?
No, if it's like this, if it's a maintenance issue, our legal department prosecutes those cases. So the deputy city attorney's been going and prosecuting the ones that we have had. So if the police department were to issue a citation for an ordinance violation, then the state attorney's office generally prosecutes those.
Councilmember Schisler?
Yes, thank you. Mr. Schoen, given the fact that we require sprinkler systems, that most importantly, as well as the fire alarms, if there is, God forbid, a disaster at the restaurant, for example, and the sprinkler system does not go off, and there's injuries and so forth, by us not enforcing, by us, and I'm not saying this in the negative, are we liable as a city for not enforcing our rules? Or not enforcing the codes on this?
Legally, a city is not required to enforce any of its ordinances.
Okay.
So the answer to that would be no. So this would be on the owner of the property.
And now,
And we are we are doing everything we can to enforce them. So we're not just sitting, and with a lot of things, if it's a home, the lien continues to build but we're not just sitting there and letting the fine keep running. We are turning around when we saw that this wasn't working, we're going ahead and taking this straight to court.
okay, thank you.
Whereas the judge can impose a fine that is $500 a day. Each day is considered a new violation under the law. And so the judge can go up to $500 or send somebody to jail.
Mr. Bayou?
Just a couple of things. Mr. Baroni, you're going to have to help me with this one, but my understanding is the fire alarm is not every single business in that plaza. It's just certain two businesses, correct? Which two businesses are we talking
I
about?
thought it was 4 businesses.
Is it 4? Okay,
But it was the one that was the ice cream parlor.
okay.
That's unoccupied right now, and then the 3 to the right of that. So if you're looking at the ice cream parlor, it's the 3 to, so I think it's a salon, and 2 other businesses, I'm not really sure.
Yeah, the
Phone store and the rest?
the restaurant and the bank are okay. They're
okay?
they're their own systems. That's the way it was explained to us at Code Board.
Okay.
What?
Okay, Mr. Pergorovich.
Yeah,
This
he
is
can.
Not typically, but,
I understand. So, just so you understand, it's the strip center where the Starbucks is and the sub shop and that piece. The larger restaurant and the bank are on their own system. What's happening at that strip center is there's 2 meters. There's meters for each individual tenant that they pay their own electric bill. It's more than 2 meters. Each one of those units is individually metered for the electricity needed to operate the unit. The fire alarm system is on a separate meter for that particular area. 2 things happened. The fire alarm company had been carrying the monitoring and servicing of the fire alarm for about a year. But the fire alarm itself hasn't been inspected in 2 years. The last straw was he hadn't been paying the electric bill for the meter for the fire alarm system, and TECO did come out and red tag it and turned off the electricity. Okay, he hadn't been paying that for about a year. So 3 things have to happen in order for that system to work again. Somebody's got to square up with the fire alarm company. Somebody has to square up with TECO. And then when you turn it on, you got to cross your fingers that nothing happens to the fire alarm system when you boot it back up. That there's no issues. If that all happens, then he's good to go. But chances are, since it hasn't been checked in 2 years, and you're going to have a surge of electricity booting it all back up again, there's probably going to be something you need to do to that fire alarm system to make it fully operational. So it's not, the large restaurant is fine, they have their own. It's those smaller units in the back, what used to be the ice cream store, the sub shop, and whatever, I think there's the massage unit is next to it. Yeah. So that's what's going on.
okay, thank you. Mr. Baroni, when you did your walking around with him, did he give you any sense of what's going on?
No, I was trying to ask him a lot of questions, and he didn't provide any answers.
Hey, so we don't, because that's been the puzzling part of this whole thing, is like, what's going on? I mean, it's just like fell off the face of the earth and stopped paying everything.
Yeah, what the tenants are saying that he's not doing anything for them. I know when we served him, the server did not want to, or he didn't want to be served at the house. He met him at a separate location, and that's where he was served. So I guess he's embarrassed somewhat of what's going on.
Okay. Anything else? I don't know what else to ask.
I'm hoping that the judge takes care of it, and the judge will ask questions, and when the judge asks questions, you got to answer, so.
Yeah.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor, could I
Yes,
hate
Mr.
to end on a negative note? Let's end on a positive one if we could.
There we
So,
go.
Talking about code enforcement, last year, even before the Paragon shops or the fountain shops, there was a property, remind me of the street it's on, Mr. York's property? What street is that on?
Leon Avenue.
Leon Ave, thank you. We had a property on Leon Avenue, which the council saw photos of. It had been in disarray since 2008.
That's correct.
And it was homesteaded, and so they were fined since 2008 every day, obviously not doing anything. The property kept deteriorating, there was no action. With the council's discretion, we went to county court, and we should all send the flowers or something to the judge, because the judge held fast, threatened to put this gentleman in jail, and has been checking up every single month, basically, on this gentleman, making him go back to court. And after, how many years is that, 16, 17 years or so? There is progress now. The siding's been changed out. There's a contractor working on the property. We've gotten the neighbors to actually send notes in saying, hey, thank you, City Council, for doing that. Finally, it looks like there's some good direction going on that property. And that would not have happened were it not for the work of Mr. Barone and the rest of the team and the county court. So we appreciate that.
And the legal team for
Yes.
initiating that form of prosecution for us. So thank you all for that.
We've been going in front of the same judge in the county court. So it's not different judges. We've been going, so there's been 2 cases been taken to the county courts.
Good, 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 good. Okay. Thank you for that. Feel a little better. Okay. Any other business to come before the council? Anything? Good to see you guys here. We really appreciate all the work you're doing. You guys are really hitting it out of the park these days, so thank you all. So, very good. We will stand adjourned.